यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य
ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञान घन प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्माहमस्मि सोहमस्मि ब्रह्माहमस्मि। ओम प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। May the Almighty Shri Lord Venkateshwara bestow all kinds of prosperity, health, wealth and eternal happiness with Paripurna Lakshmi Katakshams to you and the entire your family and friends. Let us begin Bhagavad Gita, verse number 34. I mean the last verse of 13th chapter. Though we have completed this chapter in the last session itself, but the one word is to be explained a little bit more. So we will complete that today. Then we will go for a recap, means a Mahavalokanam or a summary for 13th chapter. Okay. Kshetra kshetrajnayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti mokshancha ye viduryanti te param. In this verse, Bhagavan says, ye who viduryanti, ye viduhu. Actually, viduryanti must be divided into two words. So, two verbs they are. Viduhu means who know. Actually, it's in the plural form. Who know, they attain. Who know what? They attain what? That is the last sentence of the 13th chapter. The difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, and the difference between Jnanam and Jneyam. That's what is given in the first line of this verse. Kshetra Kshetrajnayoho antaram. Antaram means the difference. The difference of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. But Bhagavan has not brought here Prakriti and Purushaha, Jnanam and Jneyam. Now he has brought the 6 technical terms into only 2 technical terms. These 2 technical terms which are experienced by us very closely. Kshetra means this body. This body is nothing but the part of Prakriti Tattva. Now Prakriti means what? The world, made up of 5 elemental aspects, which we learnt as a matter principle, and the consciousness of this Sharira, which is experienced in the form of I, is none other than Purusha Tattva. That's all. The matter is completed now. Bhagavan has done the equation. The after equation, what remains? Only Kshetram is experienced. In that Kshetra, the whole Prakriti Tattva is included. Now, when I see the body, I see the world. Whatever the world contains, the body contains the same. Whatever the body contains, the world contains it. That is what the understanding. Now the 6 technical terms have brought into only 2 technical terms. Now the difference of Kshetra and Kshetrajna is to be realized. That's what was analyzed in the 13th chapter. Now the end of this chapter, Bhagavan brings these words in the form of upasamharam, means a conclusion. If a person or people who understand, means realize the difference between this Kshetra and Kshetrajna with the help of Shastra, Jnana Chakshusha, with the help of the Shastra, means what? With the help of the knowledge which is in the form of equation, then they yanti. They attain what? Param yanti. Param means moksham. And not only that, they attain ultimate and they get rid of what? They get rid of samsara. That samsara word is given as bhuta prakriti moksham. Moksham means the liberation. The liberation from what? Bhuta prakriti. Liberation of ajnana. Okay? Liberation from ajnana. Or we can say, we get rid of ajnana. Get rid of avidya. This verse is very important because it does final conclusion. Final conclusion. See, Brahman is a supreme entity. By knowing the Brahman with the help of Shastra, with the help of Shastra means what? Having a process of coming or arriving at equation, then matter completes. Now benefit is said in the last line. What is the benefit of Vedanta? By studying Vedanta, what we will get? We'll get, means the darkness is removed by bringing the light which is in the form of Shastra Jnanam. That's all. Now in the previous line, there is one word, Jnana Chakshusha. When we receive the knowledge of Shastra, that received knowledge exists in our buddhi. If it is assimilated, then we will be gaining one more eye. That one more eye see clearly what the reality of the world is. That one more eye is known as Jnana Chakshuhu. By that Jnana Chakshu means the vision of the third eye. We can just, we can understand in this way. So, he will be endowed with the third eye, the eye of Shastra. The buddhi which works according to Shastra's knowledge. He brought two examples for it to establish, to arrive at this conclusion. So, evam antaram. Antaram means the difference between kshetra and kshetrajna. Finally, he gave two examples. What is the difference between kshetra and kshetrajna? By defining kshetrajna with 7 technical terms. So, he brought two examples. The example of akasha. Okay? Not sky. Sky is not akasha, space. The example of space. And example of sun and sunlight. Okay. Now the example of space and sunlight, they are very similar, but both of them not one and the same. Now we have got the examples for Brahman, the examples for Purushaha, the examples for Kshetrajnaha. Now there are 3 technical terms, whether you say Kshetrajna or if you say Purushaha, if you say Brahman. Kshetrajnaha from individual aspects and Purushaha is the collective aspects. If you remove the Prakriti Tattva and Kshetra Tattva from these 2, what remains is known as Brahma Tattvam. Okay? Is it too technical? But don't worry, we will understand. So this body is endowed with Kshetra Tattva. The collective world is endowed with Prakriti Tattva. When you remove this Kshetra Tattva and Prakriti Tattva with the help of Shastra, what remains is Brahma Tattva. That's what is attained as a Paratattva. Now, when Bhagavan describes the attributes through those 7 technical terms of these 2 examples, it's a beautiful way of understanding about Kshetrajnaha. So we can understand Kshetrajnaha through this technical term. It's a final touch of Bhagavan. Bhagavan says the space and the light of sun both are endowed with Ekatvam. I should not say both are endowed with. Either you should take one example, Akasha. So there is no two Akashas, which is endowed with oneness. There is no Dvaitam. Akasha is only one. So one space gives space to all the entities. Now there are no two space. When you take a pot and you just keep the pot upside down, there is a space inside and there is a space out of that pot. Now the space which is into the pot is named as Ghatakasham. The space outside of the pot is known as Mathakasham. These are all Shastra's words, Ghatakasha, Mathakasha. Now the Ghatakasha, the space in the pot, is it limited? It seems to be limited. The limitation is as if limitation. There is no limitations. The pot, not only the pot, nothing can divide the space, because space is endowed with oneness, ekatma. In the same way, the consciousness which we experience, it's a separate consciousness. No, there is only one consciousness, like the space and like the light also. The sunlight, which is only one sunlight. There are no sunlights, you cannot divide them. One sunlight, it illumines everything. Now two examples. Akasha is one and the sunlight is also one. In the same way, our consciousness, which has got the nature of oneness, it cannot be divided. Why? Because it's all pervasive. The space is all pervasive. So when anything that is all pervasive, now the space which is all pervasive cannot be divided. Therefore that oneness, because of what? Sarvagata Tattvam. But it seems to be limited in the part. In the same way, it seems to be limited here, but it is all pervasive. Atma is all pervasive. Our consciousness is all pervasive. The body seems to be separate. I have a sharira, you have a sharira. The experience of sharira is one and the same. Then the third word, achalatvam. So that consciousness is motionless, like the space. Space doesn't move. Air goes here and there because air is limited, wind is limited. In the same way, light doesn't travel. When you take a mirror under the sun, so when you show the mirror like that, so the sun is reflected, you take the mirror, you move the mirror, it seems to be that sun also comes with the glass. It doesn't mean that the sunlight is moving. That Chaitanya means Pratibimba Chaitanyam, what we call it, reflected sun. It seems to be moving. It is not moving at all. So when I move the hands, so hands alone moving, light doesn't move. So there is, some lights, so light doesn't move. Light is endowed with motionless. We can say, sun is endowed with motionlessness. I don't think there is a word motionlessness. Okay, chalo. So no other word. Just we can understand. The space also doesn't move. Both are very subtle. In the same way, that subtlety can be encountered by one more entity called my consciousness. The consciousness doesn't move. If I can move, I move. This is like a small mini radio transistor. The radio transistor, when you take, FM is heard everywhere. Because nowadays all buses, they do have FM radio. So buses keep on moving. But that song or anything, which is telecasted in that, it is telecasted. There is no motions. The motion of bus is not seen in that song. In the same way, when we travel, Atma doesn't travel. Atma, because Atma is sarvagataha. It is all pervasive. and therefore it is achalatvam, endowed with inactivity. Yeah, that is the proper word. Instead of saying motionlessness, inactivity. Because it is not endowed with action, it becomes modificationless, nirvikaritvam. Akasha it doesn't undergo any modifications. Rain takes place, So when there is a rain, so everybody, we are becoming wet. The space wet. That's what Shastra says. Nat kledayanti. It cannot be drowned, it cannot be drenched, it cannot become wet. Like that, nirvikaritvam, no modifications. Asangatva means it is endowed with detachment, means it doesn't affected by any material, not polluted. Like lotus in the water, it is not affected by that. Akasha doesn't affected by fire. When the fire burning, it seems to be Akasha is burning. No, Akasha won't be affected. Like sunlight also, it won't be affected by any kinds of pollutions. My Chaitana Tattvam. So we have to apply with all these words. I am endowed with Ekatvam. I am is endowed with that I, which is endowed with Sarvagatatvam. The I which is endowed with Achalatvam. The I which is endowed with Nirvikaritvam. I should say the meaning of those words, The I which is only one. The I which is all pervasive. The I which is beyond action. The I which doesn't undergo any modifications. The I which is not polluted. So if anybody or if someone, suffers from cancer, Atma is not affected by the diseases of the body, the nature of the body, the gunas of the body. Atma is, free from all these dirts. Then akhandatvam. Akhandatvam means what? It is partless. It's partless means what? It cannot be, slayed. The light cannot be slayed. Now, so current went off. So, what shall we do? We'll go out and, we will cut the sunlight, and can we bring inside? No. Sunlight cannot be cut because it is akhandam. The same way, space cannot be also limited. We cannot see a piece of space. No. Maybe some language they use, give me a piece of space. There is nothing in English. I heard in some language, I don't know, I forgot, I think Russia. Piece of space. Means it's, kind of, we have to give a little bit space to them. Give me a space. So space cannot be given. The space is all pervasive, akhandam. Then space has got one more quality. It becomes substratum of everything. Sarvadharatvam. Now my consciousness is the basic material, means not material, base, substratum or substance for my entire sharira and my world and everything. Finally, my consciousness, which is ekam, sarvagatam, achalam, nirvikaram, asangam, and akhandam, akhanda vastu, and sarvadharam. That is the understanding. We are liberated from ajnana. That's what, bhuta prakritehe moksham, mokshanam, abhava gamanam cha ye viduhu vijananti. We get rid of bhuta prakriti. We won't have any connection already. We will be disconnected. We will be liberated from ajnana, the darkness. And we will reach Param, Supreme. This is what the conclusion of the 13th chapter. So, Aham Brahmasmi. That's all. Aham Ishvaraha Asmi. No. Aham Brahmasmi. The Ishvara comes in. The Jiva and the Ishvara, both is to be taken or realized as Brahman. Aham, the consciousness, individual consciousness, is nothing but Brahma. The Brahma word, in the beginning it denotes the Ishvara. Finally, it becomes even Paravastu. It becomes even the free from Maya, the final Brahman. So this is the conclusion of the chapter number 13. Then we saw the concluding sentences, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Kshetrajna Yogo Nama Trayodashodhyayah. The chapter which is known as Kshetra Kshetrajya Vibhaga Yoga. So the total chapter which discusses about the difference of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and which is in the form of dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, the knowledge which is nothing but yoga or Brahma Vidya, and which contains the text name is called in the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter number 13 is completed. That's all. So now the conclusion is given. Now we can begin to see the Simhavalokanam. Simhavalokanam means what? Proper summary of this chapter. This chapter begins with Arjuna's questions, like most of the chapter in Bhagavad Gita. It begins from the words which is not given in the most of our books. Prakritim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetrajnam evacha yetad veditumichhami jnanam jneyam cha keshava. So it was considered as the first words of this chapter. Okay, but we saw the meaning, but we didn't bring into the account of other verses, because let it be with a normal number, so which all other books are containing. So the chapter begins with these words from Arjuna. So what is the meaning of these words? Arjuna is questioning meaning for these 6 technical terms, which are the essence of the past 12 chapters. First, we should remember we have completed 2 Shatkams. Shatkam means a group of 6 chapters. The first 6 chapters which dealt only the karma yoga part as a sadhana, in which the individual consciousness was explained. Tam padartha vishesha. In the second 6 chapters, the content of Ishwaratvam, Tat padartha vishesha, which was explained in the form of sadhana. That sadhana is known as upasana. Now the first Shatkam, which has karma as a sadhana. The second 6 Shatkam, which has upasana in the form of sadhana. The third 6 chapters, which talks about the equations, but which is in the form of Jnana Yoga Sadhana. Jnana Yoga means the knowledge itself, inquiring about the knowledge of Ishvara and Jiva and the equation. So that is considered as a sadhana. But Bhagavan brought in simple way the content of those 2 Shatkam in the form of the question of Arjuna. He asked meaning for 6 technical terms. What are they? Kshetra, Kshetrajnaha. Purusha, Prakriti. Then Jnanam, Jneyam. This is how the chapter began. Then in the second verse, Bhagavan started giving the meaning of those words from 2 to 6. Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoho Vivekam. The knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajnaha was given in 5 verses. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with these 5 verses, Bhagavan gave a complete infrastructure of Kshetram and a little bit about Kshetrajnaha. That's all. Then from verse number 7 to 11, Bhagavan didn't talk about Purusha or Prakriti. Just he gave the knowledge about the word Jnanam. What and all are called Jnanam. So that thing was explained from these verses, verse number 7 to 11, then in the 12th verse, Bhagavan made a sankalpa. So from the 12th verse, we will see the summary of the 13th chapter in the forthcoming sessions tomorrow. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namo Namah. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.